Newsfirst at 9. Headlines.
Well, hello, very good evening to you. Welcome to Weekend Primetime News live on MTN Sports and Shakti TV. I'm Shahan Jarangpati and these are your headlines. Pope John the 23rd and Pope John Paul II canonized at Vatican City. A divided Commonwealth will not serve its founding principles. A statement from the President. 2 people die in Pallevala after consuming toxic liquor. 2 police officers in critical condition. Final round of trials for super fighter held in Kandy. And finally, South Korean Prime Minister resigns over the handling of the ferry disaster. Well, those are headlines tonight. We now cross over to the Newsfirst main news desk, where these stories are lined up in detail.
Thank you, Shaheen, for bringing us the headlines. A very good evening to all our viewers. I'm Arundhati Budanaika. Let's take a look at the stories in detail now. Huge crowds gathered in Vatican City to see a historic ceremony where 2 popes, John Paul II and John the 23rd, were declared saints. A mass co-celebrated by Pope Francis and his predecessor Benedict was watched by roughly 1 million pilgrims and a vast TV and radio audience.
Nearly 100 foreign delegations are attending, including royal dignitaries and heads of state and government. It is the first time 2 popes have been canonized at the same time. Pilgrims poured into Rome and special bus, train and boat services ferried many more into the city early this morning for the 2-hour ceremony, which started at 10 a.m. local time or 8 o'clock GMT. Some had bagged places to sleep overnight as close as possible to St. Peter's Square, hoping to be among the first in when it opened to the public. Giant screens were also erected in nearby streets and elsewhere in the city for those unable to get into the square. Vatican officials confirmed yesterday that Benedict XVI, now officially titled Pope Emeritus, would make a rare public appearance today alongside his successor Pope Francis.
Well, let's take a brief look at the lives of the 2 popes who were elevated to sainthood today.
Pope St. John the 23rd, born Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli on the 25th of November 1881, was Pope from the 28th of October 1958 to his death in 1963. Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli was the 4th of 14 children born to a family of sharecroppers that lived in a village in Lombardy, Italy. He was ordained a priest on 10th August 1904 and served in various posts, including appointments as a papal nuncio in France and a delegate to Bulgaria and Greece. In a consistory on the 12th of January 1953, Pope Pius XII made Roncalli a cardinal priest of Santa Prisca, in addition to naming him the Patriarch of Venice. Roncalli was elected Pope on the 28th of October 1958 at age 76 after 11 ballots. He was the first Pope to take the pontifical name of John upon election in more than 500 years. Pope St. John Paul II, sometimes called John Paul the Great, was born Karol Joseph Wojtyła on the 18th of May 1920 and was Pope from the 16th of October 1978 to his death in 2005. He was the 2nd longest serving Pope in history and as a Pole the first non-Italian since Pope Adrian VI, who died in 1523. John Paul II was one of the most influential leaders of the 20th century. John Paul II significantly improved the Catholic Church's relations with Judaism, Islam, the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Anglican Communion. He is known for his implementation of several papal documents pertaining to the role of the Church in the modern world. He was one of the most travelled world leaders in history, visiting 129 countries during his pontificate. As part of his special emphasis on the universal call to holiness, he beatified 1,340 people and canonized 483 saints, more than the combined tally of his predecessors during the preceding 5 centuries.
Now, speaking to Newsfirst, Reverend Father Benedict Joseph, the spokesperson of the Archdiocese of Colombo, explained the significance of the elevation of the 2 popes to sainthood.
Today, two popes who had contributed so much for the Catholic Church during the present time were elevated to the sainthood. They were unique personalities who contributed much to the Catholic Church. In their days of living among us, we clearly saw that they were not ordinary people. They were specially selected servants of God. And their life example was so exemplary and then also so expressive. They will be our mediators. We can really go to them and ask them to help us in our ways, and also with their footsteps we will be able to attain great things in our life in this church as Catholics and Christians. Therefore, it is such a historic and a very saintly day for all of us, because this is something very unique. For the very first time, we really observe a day like this.
President Mahinda Rajapaksa says that a divided Commonwealth will not serve its founding principles. The President made this statement yesterday at the Commonwealth Day celebrations held in Colombo.
Commonwealth Day was marked on the 11th of March in the UK, parallel to Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee. An event to mark Commonwealth Day in Sri Lanka was held last evening under the auspices of President Mahinda Rajapaksa, with the visiting former President of the Maldives, Maumoon Abdul Gayoom, participating as the guest of honour.
The Commonwealth is a voluntary association of sovereign states. Therefore, despite its diversity, all member states, big or small, affluent or not, at different levels of development, irrespective of economic might and financial contributions to the organization, are equal partners and cherish shared values. This equality of status is at the very core of the Commonwealth and must be preserved. It is therefore necessary for the organization to address the concerns of the wider membership on a level playing field. A divided Commonwealth will not serve its founding principles.
2 people have died after consuming toxic alcohol at a party in Pallevela, Mirigama. 2 police officers who also participated in this party have been taken ill and are receiving treatment in intensive care unit of the Watupitivala district base hospital. 3 friends who had gathered at the residence of retired postal service employee D.A. Nihal in Pallevela, Mirigama had commenced a party at about 9 p.m. The 3 guests were businessmen and 2 police officers attached to the Pallevela police post. The police said that the group had consumed a type of locally manufactured liquor before switching to an imported variety of liquor. The host had brought out the bottle of liquor which he had kept at his home. The group, who were taken ill upon consuming the liquor, were brought to the Murugama Rural Hospital. Our reporter says that 2 of the victims were pronounced dead upon admission. The 2 police officers who were in critical condition were transferred from the Mirigama Rural Hospital to the Watupitivala District Base Hospital. The hospital spokesperson said the duo are currently being treated at the intensive care unit. The police have recovered another bottle of imported liquor from the residence.
Following the post-mortem examination, we will be able to determine the cause of death and the type of poison. Facts will be learned from examinations carried out by the judicial medical officer and laboratory specialists. At the same time, the police will investigate how this person came to possess the bottle of liquor. Did he obtain it from abroad? Who gave it to him? Were there other bottles in this stock that were distributed in Sri Lanka? Some of these bottles could have toxic contents as well.
The deceased were 54-year-old father of 1, D.A. Nihal, and 49-year-old businessman S.A. Sarachandra, a father of 2. The adoption of 2 orders under the Strategic Development Projects Act in Parliament last week has added fuel to the debate on the establishment of casinos in the country. Let's take a look at some of the views expressed on the political stage in this regard.
The government has introduced a new game. The Casino Act, which is very harmful to the country, was adopted in Parliament yesterday amid the objection of all sections of society, including the chief prelates, the Archbishop and the UNP-led opposition. The government has introduced a new traditional game for the new year next year.
The chief prelates of the three sects informed His Excellency the President in writing of their objection to this act. In spite of this, it was tabled in Parliament and adopted. The UNP protested against this casino bill when it was first introduced. Amid the protests of the UNP, it was reintroduced in Parliament and amended. We are making preparations to go from village to village and raise awareness among the people and the Mahasangha about this and put a stop to it.
The opposition is trying to stop something good through whatever means. The day before yesterday, we adopted the so-called Casino Act. Ranil Wickremesinghe was not even in Parliament. He's in Las Vegas playing in the casinos. The MPs here voted against the bill. In 2005, Ranil Wickremesinghe travelled in a casino entrepreneur's bus. I too travelled in that bus. I only found out about it later. In 2001, when they came into power, they tried to establish horse racing and a casino in a 5,000-acre area in the southern province by 2002. All plans had been made. Today in our country, major development is taking place for the next generation and the generations to come.
Several officers of the Divi Naguma Development Department were declared open today.
The head office of the Divi Naguma Development Department, which comes under the purview of the Ministry of Economic Development, was declared open today by Minister Basil Rajapaksa at Castle Street, Colombo. The Minister of Economic Development also declared open the zonal office of the Divi Naguma Development Department in Battaramulla. We had to go to court on 2 occasions because we introduced this through a separate act. Some did not understand that this was not a traditional department. Those in the court and some trade unions too did not understand that this was a Bhumiputra department for the people, from the people. No matter who gave the verdict, it was given by the people who do our work. This is a department that was brought forth with much pain. There are several mothers here, and mothers know the pain they must undergo to bring forth a person into this world. At the same time, it is also a major happiness for every mother. Even though I am not a mother, as a person who was able to carry out this task, I too am extremely happy today.
Speaking at an event held in Vellasa Bibila yesterday, Minister Vijit Vijayamuni Soisa made the following remarks.
I remember how I could not bear it 6 months after the government was toppled in 2001. When we were losing in every district in Sri Lanka, we secured victory in the Monragala district. When a recount of the preferential votes was held, I went there. I toted this toy gun and threatened them to release the results, and I won by 1,000 votes. Now we have a government and we have a Rajapaksa too. We are strong. If we cannot go on this journey, we will go home. We do not need any more cripples. Remember that when I contested the position of Chief Minister, the government at the time did not say that I was the Chief Ministerial candidate. I said that I was the Chief Ministerial candidate. And when I said it, no one else in Monragala said that they were the Chief Ministerial candidate. If anyone looks into who changed politics in this district, they will know that it was Vijayamuni Soisa.
The final round of trials for Super Fighter, Sri Lanka's first reality sports TV program, worked off at Kingswood College for the second consecutive day today.
Super Fighter.
Super Fighter is a joint initiative of MAS Holdings, Newsfirst and the MTV and MBC Media Network. Boxers participated in the 14th round of trials today, which worked off at Kingswood College, Kandy. Over 1,000 athletes participated in today's training camp under the guidance of national and international trainers. A number of boxers participated in the training camp, which was held prior to the selection process. Trials were held under 4 weight categories to select the final group of contenders for the coveted title of Super Fighter. This selection process, which began in the Gampa district, has now covered 25 districts and over 100 contenders have qualified to round 2 of Super Fighter. How many contenders from the Kandy district will qualify to round 2 of Super Fighter? Tune into Super Fighter on Sirius TV to find out.
Super Fighter.
Coming up on the news tonight. Chelsea dent Liverpool's title hopes with the 2-0 away victory. All the action coming up on Sports First.
The Polonnaruwa district was ranked 21st in Sri Lanka in the GCE ordinary level results. This shows how much of a decline we are in. The Provincial Council should take responsibility for this. It is pointless to tell the children.
This statement made by Minister Maithripala Sirisena in Polonnaruwa yesterday is one that must receive due consideration. The decline that the minister speaks of, citing last year's GCE O-level results, is a factor that has been brought to the attention of the competent authorities through Action TV on several occasions since 2007. Action TV cited several examples in these exposés of political interference that has caused not only the Polonnaruwa district but the North Central province as a whole to be ranked at the bottom in the country in terms of education. Every provincial council has to varying extents cornered qualified personnel to appoint unqualified persons to positions of importance owing to political interference, thereby affecting the province's education system. As per the results of the GCE O-level examination last year, the highest number of students to fail all subjects are from the Western province. From 2010 to the 4th of January this year, important decisions in education in this province, ranging from the transfer of teachers to the closing down of schools, have been executed through an unrecognized position. Instead of taking action against this individual who has illegally enjoyed wages and benefits paid for by the public, the governor of the Western province provided the first appointment in the new provincial council to this retiree and ensured he continues to play a prominent role in education in the province. A prime example of the ad hoc activity of this individual was the step taken on Friday to call 12 prefects of Asoka Vidyalaya Maradana to the Chief Minister's office and seek their support for decisions taken with regard to the school. The support of the prefects had been sought to reinstate the principal of Asoka Vidyalaya, who was appointed in violation of procedure in November last year and was later removed from the position by the Provincial Education Secretary, citing the principal's inability to control the school. 2 of the prefects, who probably had much higher regard than the officials do for good governance, handed in their badges and resigned from their positions rather than go to the Chief Minister's office as requested. Can the actions of these 2 students and the actions of the student community of Asoka Vidyalaya as a whole serve as guidance to officials when it comes to correcting mistakes? Governor of the Western Province, once again, this is over to you.
Tamil National Alliance parliamentarian P. Ariyanethan and former Deputy Minister V. Putra Sigamani were featured in the Minno talk show hosted by J. Sri Ranga.
The Sri Lankan government said earlier that the LTTE was a terrorist organization. Today, the international community has branded the government of Sri Lanka as terrorists. We view this as an achievement of the Tamil-speaking people. The government must keep in mind that when one finger is directed at someone, 3 fingers are directed at you.
During Geneva sessions, debates take place on war crimes. What is your view on this?
the government never would have thought that the United States will move a resolution following the end of the conflict 5 years ago. The government which spoke of war crimes is now the center of attention for the same crime. The government prescribed 16 Tamil organizations in order to defeat this movement.
What are your views on the Indian government's action on the US-sponsored resolution?
The Indian government is trying to calm the situation after sparking the problem. Ananda Sangri also gave the nod for India to go ahead. India has betrayed the Tamil-speaking people in the north. India supported the Pakistan-sponsored resolution before an hour the US-sponsored resolution was debated. It is after this that India was silent on affairs relating to Sri Lanka. As the present Indian government has betrayed the people of the north and east, a political solution will be found with the new Indian government in the future.
As busy as a bee, a common phrase that is ascribed to people who work hard to make a living. Well, Newsfirst recently came across a group of farmers who have strengthened their livelihoods and their economy by keeping as busy as their charges.
Newsfirst met with a group of beekeepers from the Naramali area and Kurunagala who are obtaining economic benefits while increasing the bee population that is in decline. According to these farmers, the bee zani that is collected after making bee communities is sold for between 1,000 and 2,000 rupees a bottle.
I have been involved in the beekeeping industry for a long time. Honey can be sold for about 1,000 rupees. Apart from this, we can also sell bee communities. There are many who ask for beehives. We sell a beehive for about 3,500 rupees. If the customer provides a box, we can sell it for 2,500 rupees.
These beekeepers point out that an environment conducive for beekeeping is prevalent in the northwestern province. Training and instructions for beekeeping is provided free of charge from the provincial council and equipment is also provided at a half rate. According to these beekeepers, bee farming is a good means of becoming economically strong. Northwestern Province Agriculture, Fisheries, Livestock Production and Development and Irrigation Minister Sanath Nishanta Pereira said that he intends to launch a special program aimed to supplying honey to meet the national requirement.
The Around the World team that is raising awareness on the World Conference on Youth 2014 arrived in Paris, France today. And yesterday they got the opportunity to tour the Geneva city in Switzerland. Newsfirst Ramesh Rugal Bandara filed this report.
Around the world in 40 days.
The Around the World team visited the museum dedicated to the International Red Cross and Red Crescent societies around the world. Exhibits covering three broad areas, namely defending human dignity, restoring family links and reducing natural risks, were present at the museum. The museum also allows visitors to listen to testimonies of victims who have faced natural disasters or conflicts. The team's next stop was the Universe of Particles exhibition of CERN, which is the European Organization for Nuclear Research. Finally, the team arrived before the shores of Lake Geneva. One of the icons of Geneva is this water fountain which was constructed 128 years ago. It stands over 90 meters tall. Water leaves the nozzle of this fountain at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour. At any given moment, there are about 7,000 liters of water in the air.
And on that note, we bid farewell to Geneva, Switzerland. Our next destination is Paris, France. In France, we conclude the European leg of Around the World in 40 days. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Ramesh Rugal Bandara with Yasrat Kamal Siri from Geneva, Switzerland.
Moving on to news overseas now, South Korean Prime Minister Chung Hong-won announced his resignation today over the government's poor response to the April 16 ferry disaster. The Seoul ferry sank on a routine trip south from the port of Incheon to the traditional holiday island of Jeju.
내각을 총괄하는 총리인 제가
The right thing for me to do is to take responsibility and resign as a person who is in charge of the cabinet. I thought it is a way of apology. On behalf of the government, I apologize for the many problems from the prevention of the accident to the early handling of the disaster.
국민 여러분께 사과드립니다.
Divers are still trying to recover bodies from the ill-fated vessel. Any hope of finding survivors is long gone as bad weather continues to hamper the search operation. Grieving parents blame the government for the slow pace of the recovery and the frequent changes in information provided by the government. More than 300 people, most of them students and teachers on a field trip from the Dunwon High School on the outskirts of Seoul, have died or are missing and presumed dead. The confirmed death toll as of today was 187.
A section of aggrieved voters in India's financial capital Mumbai returned to polling booths to recast their votes today as the Election Commission announced repolling in 4 polling stations following the malfunctioning of electronic voting machines or EVMs during voting in the 6th phase of the mammoth elections. On Thursday, people had cast their votes on the second biggest day of the elections that would decide the fate of over 1.2 billion people.
The country is now over halfway through its 9-phased voting for a new parliament. In the 6th phase of the election, voters of 117 constituencies in the nation's 11 states and 1 union territory cast their ballots. Mumbai voters were among the 180 million people who were registered to vote in the 6th phase of India's mammoth general election on Thursday, but many were unable to cast ballots due to malfunctioning machines and when their names were not found on the electoral list. Today, voters from Malad, Kandivali and Chandiwali areas in Mumbai headed back to 4 polling stations. Election Commission officials acknowledged that the lack of coordination between authorities had led to some lapses and promised to fix the problems before local elections due later this year. Voters expressed inconvenience over repolling after the technical glitches.
Well, up next is Sports First investigative journalism segment, The Bitter Truth.
On several prior occasions, the Bitter Truth has noted that the Sri Lanka Badminton Association could face a suspension if elections for office bearers are not held this year. On Thursday, the Badminton World Federation addressed a letter to the president of SLBA confirming these fears. The letter notes that the decision taken by SLBA to not hold elections in keeping with the national sports law was unacceptable. The letter noted that if SLBA continues to function with government interference, the BWF would have no other choice but to suspend the association. The BWF imposed a deadline of the 20th of June 2014 for the SLBA to comply and hold elections for office bearers. The BWF warns that in the event of non-compliance, it would be forced to suspend the SLBA. The letter notes that such an action would not be against the SLBA, but against government interference. However, the Department of Sports Development is not showing any haste with regard to holding an election of office bearers for the SLBA. The Director General of Sports noted that regardless of what is said internationally, priority must be given to the law of the land. She added that an election would probably be held in March next year.
You can play badminton in keeping with the law of the country, but if you want to play badminton internationally, you will have to abide by the Constitution of the Badminton World Federation. If you act in violation of the Constitution of the World Federation, they will have to ban you. If they ban us, we will not be able to play abroad. The world cannot play with us either.
In November last year, the International Olympic Committee informed local sports authorities that sports laws should be amended in keeping with the Olympic Charter and that the constitutions of sports associations too should be amended accordingly. The Secretary of the National Olympic Committee, Maxwell De Silva, says that as such, elections of office bearers for sports associations must be held this year.
Olympic Committee.
The problem between the Olympic Committee and the Republic of Sri Lanka must be resolved before elections can be held for any sports association. As the SLBA, we are prepared to hold an election at any time, but we will not betray the country. If I hold an election, what will happen to the other associations? Therefore, the Olympic Committee should stop waiting on this and resolve the matter.
Can an international ban be staved off by passing the buck? Open for debate.
There remains a heart-wrenching story behind every pink ribbon worn during the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. With the Breast Cancer Awareness Month a few months away, it's important to remember the ones who survived the battle with breast cancer, shedding a ray of hope for the ones who are on their road to recovery. Stephanie Lazarus caught up with veteran WNBA player Edna Campbell, who had stunned the world with her breast cancer survival testimony. Now she shared her story with Newsfirst.
Among many testimonies of how breast cancer could relapse and find its way back to one's body even after rigorous treatment and being cured completely, combing through some of the data, it is evident that breast cancer can be cured with positive thinking. Edna Campbell, a retired Women's National Basketball Association player who has been a point guard for the Sacramento Monarchs for over 4 seasons in the US, is celebrated by many as a prolific basketball player. But her story doesn't end there. With numerous titles under her belt, Campbell is a survivor of breast cancer, and her return from breast cancer was nominated by fans as the most inspirational for 2006 and one of the top 4 WNBA anniversary decade moments. She tells me that her battle with cancer was a beginning of a new life.
For me, I feel like it was the beginning of a new life, and I think that if women out there could really look around them and see the women who've gone through this situation and use those women as inspiration and believe in their survivorship, that process can be a little bit easier for them. So there are millions of women who have gone through this disease, and you know, I think it's really important to understand that many of these women survive.
She not only survived the disease but fought the battle on court and off court, continuing to play despite the cancer. She became the WNBA's national spokesperson for anti-cancer efforts and received the league's Kim Perot Sportsmanship Award in 2003. After battling it out and taking down the beast, she retired from the game in 2006 but continues to inspire women and girls across the world through basketball.
Cancer does not mean that your life is over. It means that you have to jump a hurdle. You may be going through a difficult time in your life, but that does not mean that your life is coming to an end.
Edna has dedicated her life to educate and empower others not only to regain their health but to assume personal responsibility for their health.
20 minutes on to the interview, one thing was clear. It was a game with a champion with an unbreakable spirit. Stephanie Lazarus, Newsfirst.
That's the Get News at 9 for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Arundhati Mudannaika. But before we go, here's a look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Good night.
Hotline 0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at newsfirst.lk.